It all started on a quiet Saturday evening when Kayla dropped a single, explosive post onto social media. Within minutes, notifications flooded in like a storm breaking through a window. She wrote that her boyfriend, Ethan, was controlling women's bodies because he had asked her to dress more appropriately for his company's formal event. Her friends immediately sided with her, sharing the post, adding outraged comments, and painting Ethan as some outdated, sexist villain. Strangers joined in, feeding the fire until it roared across her entire feed. But behind the polished outrage and dramatic wording, Kayla carefully left out one crucial thing. Ethan had never raised his voice, never forbidden her from anything, never demanded submission. He had simply asked a question, a gentle suggestion meant to protect her from judgment in a professional environment. Yet now, the entire internet believed he was a monster. And Ethan had no idea what was coming. Kayla spent an entire hour getting ready for Ethan's company gala, humming to herself as she adjusted the straps of her dress. When she finally stepped out of the bedroom, Ethan froze, unsure how to respond. The dress was undeniably beautiful, but it was also shockingly revealing for a corporate event filled with executives, partners, and clients. He took a slow breath, trying to choose his words carefully, because he knew how sensitive she could be about anything related to appearance. "Kayla," he said gently, "you look incredible, but do you think maybe something a bit more formal would fit the event better?" Her expression shifted instantly, the way a clear sky turns dark before a storm. She crossed her arms, defensiveness rising like a shield. "So I'm embarrassing you now," she shot back. "That's not what I said," Ethan replied, trying to keep his voice calm. "I just don't want people to misjudge you. It's a professional crowd." Kayla laughed sharply, the kind of laugh meant to wound rather than amuse. "Oh, so now you're worried about what other people think of me, or of you." Ethan felt the familiar heaviness settle in his chest, the weight of yet another tiny misunderstanding growing into a war. He stepped closer, keeping his tone soft. "It's really not about control. I just want you to feel comfortable and be taken seriously. That's all." But Kayla had made up her mind. She snapped back, "You're policing what I wear. You're trying to control me." Before Ethan could say another word, she turned away, grabbed her purse, and marched toward the door. He followed, still hopping to de-escalate things. "Kayla, please listen. I'm not trying to." She held up a hand to silence him, her face cold. "Save it. I'm not changing. If you don't like it, you can walk in separately." Ethan stood there for a moment, stunned by how quickly the situation had spun out of control. But he also knew that arguing now would only pour gasoline on the fire. So they left together, tension thick and heavy between them, every step echoing the awkwardness neither of them spoke aloud. At the event, Ethan felt the exact reaction he'd feared. Several colleagues looked surprised, some uncomfortable, and a few whispered behind their hands as they passed. Kayla either didn't notice or pretended not to. She strutted through the room confidently, but every so often Ethan caught a flicker of something in her eyes, irritation, embarrassment, maybe even doubt. Still, she refused to acknowledge any issue, choosing pride over reflection. Later that night, when they returned home, Ethan hoped the tension might fade. Instead, Kayla was already unlocking her phone, her anger reignited. Within minutes, he saw her thumbs flying over the screen, crafting a story that made him the villain. He didn't know what she wrote. He didn't know she'd twisted the situation into a public accusation. He didn't know thousands of strangers would soon be calling him controlling, toxic, even abusive. All he knew was that something small had snapped, and something much bigger was about to break. Ethan didn't respond to Kayla's post. He didn't defend himself, didn't argue, didn't unleash a counter-rant. He simply went to work on Monday with a strange, quiet calm that his coworkers noticed, but didn't question. The post was still spreading online, and a few mutual friends messaged him privately, asking if it was true. He ignored them. He wasn't going to feed the drama. But deep inside, Something had hardened. Not anger. Not revenge in the traditional sense. Just a decision. If Kayla wanted the world to believe he had tried to embarrass her, then maybe she deserved to feel what actual embarrassment in a professional setting really looked like. The opportunity came sooner than he expected. Kayla had an upcoming presentation with a major client, one she couldn't afford to mess up. She'd been preparing for weeks, practicing in front of the mirror, going over every slide, rehearsing her introduction until it sounded polished and crisp. Ethan watched quietly, and he knew exactly what he was going to do. On the morning of her big meeting, Kayla dressed sharply in a navy blazer and crisp blouse, looking every bit the professional she claimed to be. She barely spoke to him, still simmering in her sense of righteous anger. They left the apartment at the same time, but she assumed he was heading to his office across town. She didn't know that his schedule was flexible. She didn't know he had rearranged his morning. She didn't know he was walking straight toward her building. Ethan entered her company lobby 10 minutes before her presentation began. He wore an outfit that mirrored hers from the gala, tight, revealing, loud, and completely inappropriate for a corporate setting. Heads turned the second he stepped through the elevator doors. A receptionist gaped. 2 interns choked on their coffee. A manager stared with wide, horrified eyes as Ethan walked with steady confidence toward the conference room. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just opened the door. Inside, the clients were already seated. Kayla was at the front of the room, mid-sentence, explaining a strategy slide with perfect posture. When the door opened, she turned with a polished smile. The smile shattered instantly. The room fell into stunned silence. One of the clients shifted uncomfortably. Another whispered something to the colleague beside him. Kayla's boss pinched the bridge of his nose, as if fighting off an oncoming migraine. Kayla's voice trembled as she tried to recover. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" Ethan simply said, "Oh, I thought I'd support you, the way you supported me at my event." The implication landed like a slap. Kayla's face flushed crimson, anger, humiliation, panic all mixing together. Her boss stepped forward quickly and asked Ethan to wait outside. But the damage was already done. The clients exchanged looks that clearly meant they were reconsidering the entire partnership. Kayla's presentation lost its momentum. Her voice cracked. She stumbled through the final slides, and when the meeting ended, the clients left with tight, unreadable expressions. The moment the door closed, the room erupted, not loudly, but in sharp, restrained disappointment. Her boss didn't yell. He didn't need to. His words were enough. "This behavior reflects directly on you." Kayla wanted to scream, to blame Ethan, to claw back control of the narrative. But in that moment, she could only stand there, trembling, realizing for the first time what public embarrassment actually felt like. And Ethan walked out of the building without looking back. The photos surfaced online before Kayla even made it back to her desk. Someone from the hallway had snapped a picture of Ethan's outfit. Another caught the stunned faces of the clients. And by lunchtime, the images were circulating on LinkedIn with captions ranging from confused amusement to pointed criticism about professionalism. Kayla saw the posts when her teammate nervously tapped her shoulder and whispered, "You might want to look at this." Her stomach dropped as she scrolled. There was Ethan, front and center, in an outfit she instantly recognized as a deliberate mirror of what she wore to Ethan's gala. People commented things like, "What is going on here?" and "This is wildly inappropriate." But what destroyed her more were the comments comparing the images to her viral post from the week before. Someone had connected the dots. They reposted both the gala photo and the conference room photo side by side, writing, "So he's controlling for asking her to dress professionally, but she's fine bringing someone dressed like this to her client meeting." The thread exploded. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of comments poured in. Hypocrisy at its finest. Saw her original post. This changes everything. Imagine shamming your boyfriend, and then this happens. Kayla tried to message the account owner to take down the comparison, but they ignored her. And the more she tried to explain in the comments, the worse it looked. Meanwhile, her boss scheduled an immediate meeting with HR. When she walked in, they already had printouts of the viral posts on the table. Her boss spoke first, voice cold and measured. "This is unacceptable. You brought someone into a critical meeting who disrupted the entire environment." Kayla stammered, "I didn't bring him. I didn't even know he was coming." HR replied, "Intent doesn't erase outcome. The clients have already expressed concerns about professionalism." Her boss added, "That partnership was important. We may lose it." Kayla felt heat crawling up her neck, her pulse pounding in her ears. She wanted to blame Ethan, but saying his name felt like admitting the internet was right about her narrative falling apart. Before she could respond, HR slid a folder toward her. "We're placing you on a performance improvement plan, effective immediately." The words hit like a hammer. A pip meant her job was hanging by a thread. She tried to explain again, to frame herself as the victim, to pull the same language she used online. Controlling, manipulative, toxic, but HR's faces were unreadable stone. The meeting ended with a single instruction: focus on rebuilding trust, actions only, no excuses. When she walked out, several coworkers avoided eye contact. A few whispered. One girl she barely knew muttered, "This is what happens when you try to drag your boyfriend online." Kayla clenched her fists, fighting the urge to scream. The injustice burned her, twisting into something bitter and desperate. Meanwhile, Ethan's day was the complete opposite. His colleagues had heard about Kayla's post, but instead of shamming him, they quietly praised how he handled everything without retaliation. They saw his silence as maturity. They saw his composure as professionalism. By evening, his manager called him in to commend him for maintaining integrity during a personal situation that could have escalated publicly. Kayla finally checked her phone, expecting at least a few supportive messages. Instead, her friends were suddenly quiet. Some had deleted their comments. Some unfriended her. The tide had turned, and she stood alone against it. All because the truth had finally begun to surface, and the internet wasn't on her side anymore. Kayla slammed the apartment door behind her that night, her heels clattering angrily on the hardwood floor. She didn't even look at Ethan, who sat on the couch reading, as if nothing in the world was out of place. Her voice cracked when she finally spoke. "You ruined my career." Ethan didn't answer immediately. He closed the book carefully, marking the page, and looked up at her with an unreadable expression. "I didn't ruin anything," he said calmly. "You created a story online, and it came back to you." Kayla's face twisted with rage. "You humiliated me in front of my clients." Ethan shook his head. "You humiliated me in front of the entire internet first." She scoffed, unable to accept even a shred of responsibility. She wanted him gone. She wanted him punished. She wanted to erase every reminder of what had happened in the conference room. "You need to move out," she snapped. "Tonight." Ethan blinked once, then reached over and pulled out the leasing agreement from the drawer. "My name is on the lease," he said simply. "Yours too. I'm not moving anywhere." Kayla felt something crumble inside her, something that had always relied on getting the final word. For the first time, Ethan wasn't bending. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't trying to fix things. He was just done. And that terrified her more than anything else. The following days devolved into a cold, calculated war. They barely spoke unless absolutely necessary, and every interaction felt like stepping into a minefield. Kayla started waking up earlier just to avoid him in the kitchen. When she found he'd used her favorite coffee mug, she moved all her dishes to her bedroom and locked the door. Ethan responded by buying a full set of stainless steel travel mugs and placing them neatly on the counter. a silent reminder that he wasn't affected. Kayla cranked the heat up to 80 degrees before leaving for work, knowing Ethan hated hot, stuffy air. When she returned, the thermostat was set to 65, and Ethan sat in the living room wrapped in a blanket, sipping tea like nothing was wrong. She left passive-aggressive sticky notes on the fridge. Clean your mess. Stop leaving crumbs. Take responsibility for once. Ethan threw every note away without reading them, the trash can swallowing her attempts to provoke him. Their shared laundry basket became a battleground next. Kayla dumped her clothes in a separate hamper and started using the washing machine at midnight, slamming doors just loud enough to wake him. Ethan bought noise-canceling headphones the next morning and slept better than ever. The silence between them grew thicker each day, pressing on the walls, suffocating every inch of the apartment. Friends stopped visiting because the energy inside felt radioactive. Kayla's family urged her to move home, but she refused, insisting she wasn't the one who should leave. Meanwhile, Ethan rarely reacted to anything she did. He cooked for himself, cleaned his own spaces, and spent most of his time at work or quietly reading. His calmness only fueled her hatred. The apartment became a place of petty sabotage and emotional tension, a cold war fought in glances, slammed cupboards, and carefully chosen petty inconveniences. Neither would move out. Neither would apologize. And both knew something much darker was brewing, because Kayla wasn't finished trying to destroy him. Kayla's frustration grew into something sharper, something restless and vindictive that kept her awake at night. She would lie in bed scrolling through the ruins of her online reputation, replaying every comment that called her a liar or a hypocrite. Each word scraped against her pride like sandpaper. And every time she heard Ethan calmly making tea in the kitchen or humming while folding his laundry, the resentment in her chest twisted tighter. She needed him to hurt the way she hurt. She needed him to lose something. One night, she invited two of her closest friends over, the ones who still believed her version of events. They gathered around the dining table, whispering like conspirators. Kayla leaned in, eyes gleaming with misdirected fury. "What if we report him to his company?" she said quietly. Her friends exchanged looks, hesitant but curious. "We can file a complaint," Kayla continued. "Say he harassed me. Say he threatened me. HR will have to take it seriously." Her friends weren't fully convinced. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" one asked. Kayla snapped. "He ruined a client meeting. He deserves consequences." Eventually, after enough coaxing, they agreed to help her draft a false complaint. Kayla rehearsed lines out loud, practicing a trembling voice, imagining how convincingly she could portray herself as the victim. She didn't know Ethan was standing in the hallway, listening to every word. Nor did she notice the faint red light on his phone, recording the entire conversation. The next morning, Ethan woke early, dressed neatly, and left the apartment without a word. Kayla thought he was going to work. She didn't realize he was heading straight to his HR department with the recorded audio. He presented the file calmly, explaining the situation in detail. HR listened, shocked, then replayed the recording twice just to make sure they heard correctly. Kayla's voice was unmistakable. Her words were deliberate. Her intentions clear. The HR manager leaned back in his chair. "Attempting to file a knowingly false report is a serious violation," he said slowly. Ethan simply nodded. "I don't want her punished beyond what's appropriate," he said. "I just need documentation in case she follows through." HR assured him they would handle it. That same afternoon, Kayla was summoned by her own company's HR department. She walked in confidently, expecting sympathy. Instead, she was met with cold glares and a printed transcript of the audio Ethan had submitted. Her heart plummeted. She tried to deny it. She tried to blame editing. She tried to lie her way out of it. But the HR representative interrupted sharply. "Kayla, it is your voice, it is clear, and it is intentional." Her boss stepped into the room, arms crossed. "We cannot tolerate deceptive or malicious behavior toward another company or employee," he said. "This incident will be added to your record. One more violation, and your employment is terminated." Kayla felt her face drain of color. She left the office trembling, humiliated, and angrier than ever. When she returned home, Ethan was in the kitchen washing dishes, as calm as if he hadn't just dismantled her plans entirely. She wanted to scream at him, but the words died in her throat. Because for the first time, she realized he wasn't playing her game. He was simply watching her destroy herself. Kayla became a ghost of herself after the HR confrontation, moving through the apartment with stiff, mechanical motions. Every morning, she dressed in immaculate, conservative outfits, double-checking her appearance as if perfection could erase the stain on her record. She stopped posting online, stopped engaging with friends, stopped doing anything that could add fuel to the fire. Her entire world shrank into a careful routine built around survival. Meanwhile, Ethan seemed to rise effortlessly from the chaos. He woke early, went to the gym, brewed coffee with a peaceful focus, and left for work with the confidence of someone who had nothing to hide. Kayla hated that confidence. She hated how calm he looked, how unaffected he seemed, how the world kept rewarding him while she fell apart. Her company assigned her small tasks, low-stakes projects, anything that didn't require client interaction. Coworkers who once greeted her warmly now avoided eye contact or kept conversations painfully short. She pretended not to notice, but the isolation gnawed at her. So when she finally got a chance to present again, just a short internal briefing, she clung to it like a lifeline. She practiced for hours, rehearsing until her voice sounded almost steady again. And surprisingly, the presentation went well. Her manager gave her a small nod of approval, and for the first time in weeks, she felt a fragile sense of victory. That evening, she returned to the apartment carrying a faint spark of pride. Ethan was pouring a glass of wine at the counter when she walked in, and for a moment, neither spoke. Then he offered a simple, almost polite comment. "Hey, you look like things went well today, and the outfit was perfect, very professional." He meant it. But Kayla didn't hear a compliment. She heard a reminder. A reminder of the humiliation at her client meeting. A reminder of the online backlash. A reminder of the story she had built and watched crumble. Something inside her snapped. She seized the nearest wineglass and hurled it across the room. The glass shattered against the wall, red wine splashing across the cabinets like a violent painting. Ethan didn't flinch. He only stared at her with a look she had never seen before, a mixture of pity and finality. Kayla felt her body shaking, her breath coming in uneven bursts. And then, just as quickly as the rage rose, it collapsed into exhaustion. Hours later, she packed a small suitcase, refusing to meet Ethan's eyes. Her parents arrived around midnight, worried and disappointed. Kayla walked out without another word, leaving behind the apartment she once fought so hard to control. Ethan watched her go, not triumphantly, not angrily, just quietly, as if witnessing the natural end of something long overdue. In the weeks that followed, Kayla struggled. Her work monitored her closely. Her reputation never fully recovered. And her attempts to rebuild her online image fell flat, drowned out by the weight of her own actions. Ethan, on the other hand, was promoted to lead a new team after demonstrating exceptional professionalism under personal stress. He found a new apartment, a new routine, and eventually a new relationship with someone who communicated without turning conflict into warfare. Sometimes, on quiet nights, he thought about everything that had happened, how a single argument over a tire had spiraled into a storm of ego, pride, and public spectacle. And he realized something simple. Respect isn't just about how you treat others. It's also about how you handle the truth when it doesn't flatter you. Months passed, and life settled into a quiet, steady rhythm for Ethan. He focused on his work, built healthier habits, and surrounded himself with people who valued honesty over theatrics. Sometimes he replayed the events in his mind, not with bitterness, but with a kind of calm clarity. He had learned that boundaries weren't cruelty, and that silence, when chosen wisely, could be more powerful than any argument. Kayla, meanwhile, drifted through a different reality. She moved back in with her parents, juggling unstable projects while trying to convince herself that everything wasn't her fault. Every so often, she posted vague messages online about toxic masculinity and victim narratives, hoping someone would validate her. But the engagement was sparse, the sympathy gone, and the audience uninterested. Those who knew the full story simply scrolled past. Ethan eventually stopped wondering whether she would ever change. Some lessons weren't his responsibility to teach. One evening, as he looked out over the city from his new apartment, he realized how far he'd come from the chaos he once lived in. The storm had passed, and for the first time in a long while, he felt completely, undeniably free.